Everybody, welcome to your Module 8 overview video. I hope that this message, this email, this video finds you well, and that you feel like you're kind of in the home stretch of this Course 1 in your Gifted Endorsement Program. So hopefully, so far we're moving, we've kind of covered a lot of the characteristics of gifted children so far. We're going to be moving into parenting gifted children for this next week. Last week you looked at characteristics of creativity, so hopefully those chapters, especially chapter 9, that talks a little bit more about the characteristics of creativity, you found helpful. Chapter 10 had a little bit more strategies. You're probably going to be referring back to chapter 10 here in your Davis and Rim textbook in Course 3 when we look at strategies of bringing creativity into your classroom. And I have a bunch of other resources that I feel like are really helpful in terms of looking at how to bring in creativity into the classroom, into like all subject areas. And then I also have some chapters that are dedicated, specifically towards math or specifically towards social studies, etc. So hopefully you'll find those helpful in Course 3. You had your creativity assignment that you did in Partners, where you started to think about, in general, some general examples about how some of these characteristics of creativity could be seen in a positive light and a negative light. I'll be looking at those this week and grading those. So hopefully you each have those in your folder, and that way when I comment on them, you'll be able to see all those comments on that one document. So hopefully you enjoyed that activity. I know you had some resources in your Davis and Rim book to refer from, but I also hope you tried to think about how they might be experienced or be manifested in your classroom. For the Google Plus form contributions, you guys are doing great on there. Remember that this is Module 8, and we ended Module 10, so you have 2 more weeks to get all of your initial posts, or however many you want in order to earn those points. So if you have 4 or more initial posts, you're going to get the full 10 points of the participation allotment on the forum for Course 1. If it's 1 to 3, you'll get 5 points. If you don't have any posts, you'll get 0 out of those 10 points. That will contribute towards your level of achievement. Know that you have a range. You've got some wiggle room if the end of the course gets really hectic and just posting to the forum is like the last thing on your to-do list. It might be okay. But I don't want to also downplay that. For those of you who are posting some of those things on there, do consider posting some of your snippets from your literature reviews. From the literature review number 1 that a lot of you guys did, many of you picked different chapters to read about the affective needs. So repurpose some of this work for the forum. Some of you had really insightful reflections or summaries of the chapter, and so posting those on the forum might help spark some of your colleagues' interest because maybe they read something else, or maybe your reflection, they have a very similar reflection or something different. So you are welcome to repurpose some of these things on the forum. Do make sure that you're including that question for your peers so we can get some participation on those forums or feedback. So as you post something, choose to just respond to 1 or 2 people. You don't have to respond to everybody, but do pick a few to read just to kind of encourage that online participation. For Module 8, this is due next Monday, October 1st at midnight. Can you believe we're already almost done with September? You've got your Davis and Rim Chapter 16, which is about parenting. And so while some of you may have gifted children or a parent, or you may be a parent, you may not be a parent, some of this literature is in order to help provide materials or resources for parents of the students in your classroom. So do also kind of read it with that outlook. There is an optional or an article that you can skim if you want. That's by Dr. Grantham. He's here at the University of Georgia. He's known for a lot of his work with diverse populations, and he has an article or a chapter, Parent Advocacy for Culturally Diverse Gifted Students. So maybe read or skim that or have that handy if you feel like another parent would like to look at that resource. Your item, one of your last tasks that you have to do for this course, is literature review number 2. This is a little different. I have folders. I have a secondary folder of lit review articles, and I have an elementary folder of lit review articles, and those articles in there are research articles, most of them fairly current research and or just kind of interesting things. I've tried to put the title in the file name so you can kind of get an idea of what that article is about, but feel free to look at some of those items that are in the folder. Just pick one, and your lit review is going to have a little bit different guidelines that are posted there on the website, and I'll navigate to the website in a moment. But the 5 parts that you have is, again, a summary of the article. And this is going to be a summary that goes like, don't just regurgitate the abstract, right? Like, include in your summary at least some of the details that show that you read the article. Some of your takeaways. You're going to be asked to either challenge the findings of the research or provide suggestions for future research. A paragraph that talks about how the findings attribute towards implications for gifted education or for gifted students in your classroom, how you're kind of connecting that to the practice. And that last one is like your personal connection to your teaching practice and some of the gifted students that you have in your classroom. I do suggest for your lit review, I'm asking for, there's 5 parts. Some of those can be 1 to 2 paragraphs, just depending on how much you want to say, but maybe including some headings in there. This doesn't have to be like a formal APA paper or anything, but maybe those headings to be sure, like, here, Kate, is my summary. Here are my takeaways. Sometimes there are a few folks in the last round of lit reviews where it was hard to figure out if you were summarizing or providing your takeaways, and rather, even though your takeaways may be part of the summary, add some personal, like, I don't need you to regurgitate the research article. Like, I know what the research article says. That's not the purpose of it. The purpose of it is for you to be able to apply what you've read and make some sort of connection to your own personal practice. So the summary is just there to provide evidence that you read, and it also helps refresh my memory of what the article is, but of you making those personal connections and reflections along the way. So, once it gets there on the website, you're going to see your lit review here. There's a folder for elementary lit review articles, and there's a folder for secondary lit review articles. So when you click on that, you're going to see just a bunch in there. Feel free to read through the titles or click and open, read the abstracts, see what's in there that you like. A lot of these I tried to be fairly recent. They're not really dated, but hopefully there are some interesting subjects in there. You might see some of those have been repurposed from some of your articles that might have been in your special populations folders. Sometimes I just kind of double dip them. So if you've already read it, I'm going to encourage you to read something else. So you're reading 2 things. You're reading your chapter and reading your lit review. If you want, optional is to skim that Grantham article or just know what's in there so you can refer back to it. Okay, so that's there on the website. Moving forward, looking ahead, because this is week 8, module 9 is your final exam. So your final exam is going to be in a Google form. It's online. You'll have all week to take it. You will only be able to submit 1 submission, but it's not timed. You don't have a little timer clicking down there in the corner or anything like that. You're going to receive an email from me once the link is live. You're welcome to use your textbook. You're welcome to use all of the resources and extra readings, like have all of that handy. Do know that I hope I don't have to say that you should be taking this final exam independently, but I'm going to make that disclaimer. Just make sure that you are acting professional and ethical in the way that you take the final exam. Make sure or remind yourself that you have to pass with an 85% in order to pass course 1. So maybe this week, just make sure you have your folders organized, or you know what your textbook is, or that sort of thing. Or just be mindful that next week, there's nothing else to do except take your final exam. No readings or anything like that. And that'll be due at midnight. For Module 10, your case study presentations will be due. I got an email inquiry about whether or not you needed to submit a written portion for this case study. And in the past, written case study and your presentation were required. I felt that it was just too much to also have like a written document with your case study, so I took that out of the guidelines. So make sure that the guidelines say how many items you need to cover and suggest that you just have a slide dedicated to each one. Like, make it really clear for me when I'm going through and grading them, but I'm only going to look at your slideshow presentation. So be mindful, or help your slideshow presentation be really kind of comprehensive to display some of the work and documentation that you did along the way. Remember that you'll be presenting into 2 small groups, about 10 minutes. Make sure you read over those guidelines. But you don't have any readings for Module 10 either. You're just gathering your case study presentations. And then your shadow experience is due. So you just want to make sure that entries 1 and 2 are complete. Pretty sure entry 1 is just your overall meeting with the person that you are going to be shadowing, discussing your goals. And then entry 2 is your first classroom observation entry. So in order to get the full 20 points out of your shadow experience for course 1, you need to have both of those 2 entries in your shadow experience document. And then make sure that's in your like kind of big, the parent CCSD gifted folder, not just nestled within course 1, because we refer to that document throughout all 4 courses. So that module 10 is going to be in residence. That's October 15th at 4:30 is where we'll meet back in the library there at Clark Middle. And so that's it for module 8. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you soon.